Please give this video a like and subscribe!
All right, here we go.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Alison, our special guest, TL Deer, and we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about the theology of feminism.
Theology?
Essentially.
No, I don't know if it's theology. I think it's theory, right? It's theorizing patriarchy. So we're going right.
Theorizing patriarchy, but there's definitely
epicenter.
I believe there's a religious
it's always
component here. So only vertical. No, what? Why aren't we live? What the fuck? Hold on a second. We should be live on it created a new instance. But damn it. YouTube.
Don.
I'm sorry. I can't.
No,
we'll just grab the link and I'll just share it with the people in there in the.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get the Beat
horizontal.
Saber up so you guys can watch some kind of visual going out.
I have a visual.
Oh, you do? No,
I just put an
see it.
image up. It's a static image. Yeah. It's a
okay,
placeholder image. So.
Okay, so if you're listening, the very best way for you to send us a message is not super chat. It is super chow at feedthebadger.com/justtip. We get the full benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the benefit of sending your message not through YouTube's comment enhancement system, and that is a euphemism for censorship. So feedthebadger.com/justtip. Send those comments there, and we will respond to them. The monthly fundraiser is not up, but when it is up, it will be at feedthebadger.com/support. So go there, and if you want to join us in our community, that's badgernation.online. Okay, let me see if I can get Ninja to start showing. I can only get entire screen.
What are you trying to share?
The Beat Saber. I thought we were going to do that.
Oh, okay. Well, if we're going to do that, then I don't need this placeholder. Well, I guess I could.
No. You could keep the placeholder until I'm actually doing something. I'm not currently doing anything.
All right. Well, why are there two? Who's this? What's this other person? Why are there? Why is it? You have the Beat Saber and there's something else. What's that other thing?
Yeah, it's me. That's me talking. Right?
No, there's. Look, I'm. You know what? I'm just gonna put the link in. I'm not gonna sweat it. We got a lot to get to. So.
Yeah. Don't worry about the mechanics.
There just seems to be an extra entity in here with us. That's all.
It's not TL Deer?
No, it's not. It's something else. Because there's like you and TL Deer and my image and me, and then your Beat Saber, and then
this mysterious
exhibit E.
the
watcher. The watcher is here.
Backstage.
I got right off the bat. We got a super chat. Thank you to Easy E4329. Says for $5. YouTube was generous enough to actually push the 30-minute notification to me this time. I have had time to warm up my kindness muscle for TL Deer. Well, there you go. All right.
That is an old meme. Kindness muscle. I remember the stream that came from.
The kindness muscle.
Yeah.
We're excavating the deep lore.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into this. So first of all, let me let TL Deer set it up, since you're the person who basically made this sacrifice. What is it that we're talking about? An excerpt. We're going to be reading an excerpt from a book, right? So tell us a little bit about the context.
Yeah, so this is a textbook which I've got, Theorizing Patriarchy by Sylvia Walby. So I discovered this on my lengthy readings, which I'm doing for this thing which I'm writing, which I don't know what to call, about the theological history of feminism and the women's rights movement more broadly. And I wanted to have some examples of the sort of references to system theory that they use. They like to talk about systems quite a lot. And I discovered dual system theory and triple system theory in some of the papers that they'd published on that. And one of the citations of that led me on to this, because, well, the dual and triple system theory, I think we've already discussed before, is the gender, capitalism, or Marxism and race. And that sort of led me on to this, sort of explaining that the patriarchy, the gender-archy bit of it by this Walby woman. So I found this book, Theorizing Patriarchy, which she wrote, and I got it because it provides a fairly solid idea of what feminists consider the patriarchy to be. Because we are constantly told that we need to educate ourselves and read a book. So I do that quite a lot. And this is one of those books that I've decided to educate myself with. It also ties in quite nicely with the fact that every so often on HBR, I'll hear the position that patriarchy has never been stated in a way that can be scientifically tested, which is true. The goalposts keep moving all the damn time. But I thought it would just be nice to actually give people a solid idea of what this patriarchy thing is that feminists keep talking about. As it turns out, it is exactly what we keep saying it is, which is this gendered system in which men extract everything and exploit everything from women, having arranged society for their own benefit at women's expense, tying in Marxism and racism and all of that sort of stuff. The things that, when confronted with it, feminists will deny being part of their canon, but here it is. And this is another one of those books which is used by people at the university level. It was first published in 1990, so it's teaching the people who are, taught to the people who are currently teaching this new crop of people that we're getting now. It is the basis for what we deal with now. And it is illuminating, I'm going to say politely, going through it. So I thought we'd go through a bit of the introduction, specifically just the sections on epistemology and then patriarchy, because that basically explains sort of the basis for most of what the rest of the book is going to do. You'll find out throughout this that she mentions 6 different forms of patriarchy, or the 6 different elements of it, and the rest of the chapters in the book are basically just going into those in more detail in their own individual chapters. But I think that this is a fairly decent way of just getting sort of a short enough idea for people watching as to what they're actually going to mean when they say these things, when they talk about things like the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they will refuse to acknowledge that this is indeed what they mean. They want the effect of it without having to take responsibility for the implications of it.
Yeah, it's very frequent that you find when you deal with feminists like that, you can cite their own canon of literature and they will just immediately say, nope, that's not it. That's not what it is. That's not what it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can pile and pile and pile their own books in front of them until they're on the other side of a wall of books, and they'll just keep denying that those books exist. And if they eventually reach a point where they can't deny that those books exist, they'll just constantly assert that you're reading them wrong and you don't understand them, and then refuse to elaborate any further.
Yeah, because you're reading criticism. You're not reading belief and agreement. You're reading these books and you have criticisms of the things that they say. That's the point. You shouldn't have these criticisms. You shouldn't have the wrong feelings about these things that are being asserted. It's not about it right or wrong. It's about how it makes you feel. And if it doesn't make you feel that it's a good thing to say, then there's something wrong with you.
But as we are going to find out going through this book, Alison, I have been informed that you are in fact a woman, and if you have feelings about things, those feelings are science, according to this book. We'll find out when we get there and see if that is true.
I don't think, I'm not allowed to, like, women like me, our feelings are not science. They are anti-science. They are
they are the demonic
squealings
I
of the
don't
pygmy.
other that
Yeah,
should that yes,
the
verboten.
other wearing the familiar face, the most horrible apparition possible, the traitor, the labia traitor. Okay.
Okay, so let's look at this thing. I'll start reading it. So epistemology, that's the epistemology. Feminist challenges to mainstream social science have invoked a variety of approaches to knowledge. Some have argued that orthodox accounts are empirically incorrect on their own terms, while others have claimed that the very way that men have constructed what counts as authoritative knowledge itself, so whatever counts as authoritative knowledge itself, it is itself patriarchally constructed. So the way that men have constructed, or what they consider to be authoritative, is itself patriarchal. That's what it's saying, right? Some have argued this. They've made this claim.
Yep. There's no objective reality. There's only incorrect and correct emotions. And then that asks, I mean, it would invite the question, whose emotions are correct? Right? Whose emotions are the thing, the substrate upon which we all rest? But I guess we're not supposed to look at the logical implications of that.
Well, not yet, but yeah, this is basically the starting point of them being able to dismantle the scientific method and the very concept of like science and objective reality in itself. They just declare how you are doing things is already biased, and therefore everything has to be thrown out as a result of that. This is just the setup for the two different schools that they try to use to justify that. And of course, when we get to that different bit, well, with the benefit of 30 odd years of hindsight, we know which one won.
Yeah. All right, next paragraph. I'm not going to read the citations, okay? So
yeah, that's fine. I just transcribed everything.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I just figure it's going to sound awkward. I'm just like, Oakley, 1974, Smith, whatever. The more basic critique is that mainstream social science is simply empirically incorrect in relation to gender and those aspects of society that gender affects. So right off the bat, the way we do things is wrong.
Typically when it comes to gender, which means men and women and the relationship between them. So we can't look at this empirically. Well, this actually explains the source of something that I found out recently, that and I think I might have mentioned this last time, that the endocrinology, like looking at the actual situation for men and women on the level of endocrine biology, the fempire was destroying careers of scientists who did that in the 90s and probably prior, like literally destroying their careers and hounding them out of academia because they had the audacity to look at men and women as biological organisms and try to figure out what they were on the level of empirical science, or through empirical science as a methodology. And feminists were having none of that. Everything has to be struggle session and ideology and politics when it comes to men and women. It can't be biology, reproduction, endocrinology. And that's why we have a gigantic hole when it comes to certain aspects of human experience and their biology. Thank you. Like we've decided to embark on a path of complete lack of knowledge of ourselves because of the fempire and its assertion right here that you can't apply empirical science to issues of men and women and their relationship. Yep.
Yeah, it was basically the publication of Sociobiology and New Synthesis by E.O. Wilson that kickstarted that entire furore back in 1970 something rather. That was when this massive split happened within the social sciences programs, and you ended up with sociobiology on one side and social constructionists on the other. And unfortunately, the social constructionists won, like when it came to capturing the institutions. The sociobiology side still exists, but it's just you get into it via all of the other things, like you just kind of drift into it. through like psychology or through biology or through neurology or something. Like you just kind of find your way into it, or through like animal behavior or something along those lines. And God help you if you ever try to apply any of it to humans, because the exact same thing that happens in animals obviously can't happen in humans. They're totally different. People get a very, sort of strange human dignity stick up there wherever they put sticks when issues like this come up.
And yet what they've replaced it with is a very fundamentally undignified narrative about how men and women relate, like through oppression, through conflict. I guess they think it has an ideological dignity to it, or whatever.
Well, the ideological dignity is that we're all the same. We're all equal. There's no such thing as difference.
Yeah, except that men always have this emergent property of patriarchy. Regardless of who they are, what religion they have, what culture, they're always creating patriarchy, even though it's socialized. So obviously there's a biological, I mean, let's put it this way. What feminists assert about men has to be biologically driven. Actually, it's even more absolute than something that's biologically driven, because it was biologically driven, there would be outliers or exceptions. But what feminists assert about men is categorical. So it operates in the same explanatory power as biology, and yet they don't want to admit it to or submit it to actual empirical science, which is like ethically vacuous. Okay.
Science is patriarchy, as we will very soon find out.
Objective reality is patriarchy. Okay. For instance, conventional views that the source of the wages gap between men and women is largely due to women having less skill and experience than men can be shown to be untrue using economic data. Conventional views that there is little violence against women can be shown to be empirically untrue by new methods of collecting such information. That is, mainstream social science has a patriarchal bias which can be remedied by more accurate and thorough social research. Did you know that sociology is patriarchal?
Can I just point something out? This it's asserting that empiricism is patriarchal, and then asserting that women's ways of knowing creates more empirically sound data, even though they don't have to submit themselves to any kind of empirical soundness. Okay.
The other thing of note is that these assertions of theirs have, of course, since then been proven to be wrong again. They say, obviously, here that, the wage gap thing being untrue. It's like, no, we know that it's true now because of looking at things like sick time, hours worked. They basically debunked the wage gap, and then it was rebunked, and then debunked and rebunked, and we just keep going through this cycle as they think of something else that could explain it, and then that gets knocked off the table and it becomes a sexism of the gaps thing. It's kind of the same with violence, and the other problems with violence against women is normally that the actual keeping tally of it, what affects men and women, one of those gets counted a lot more than the other.
But yeah, well, that's because the conclusion is that men are more violent towards women, and anything that doesn't land on that conclusion because it makes feminists feel good is obviously wrong and empirically unsound. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
All right, let us continue. Harding labels this approach to knowledge that of feminist empiricists. They use established methods of research to argue that previous assumptions about women are unfounded, an approach which argues for a really scientific attitude to knowledge rather than relying on the existing patriarchally biased knowledge which falsely passes and science. I think it's a reality.
As science, yeah, sorry.
As science. No, it's all right. It's okay. I think I understand what you were trying to say. So anyway, yeah. Any thoughts on that sentence, or should I read it again?
Patriarchy biased knowledge that falsely passes itself as science. Well, there we go. science is just patriarchal. Everything, all the knowledge that has been produced, as they would say, more likely uncovered because there are certain underlying truths of reality. Nope, that's actually just bias, and it falsely passes as science, and it is false knowledge. So once again, even the people trying to be empirical about it land on the same point. Tear it all down, we need to rebuild it.
Yeah. The limitations to this critique are that they assume that the methods of research and the way knowledge is put together are themselves scientifically neutral. A more far-reaching critique argues that the very way that men have typically constructed what counts as authoritative knowledge is itself patriarchal. The way that men have constructed what counts as authoritative knowledge is patriarchal. This is why we can't know anything, guys, because it's patriarchal. Okay, let's keep going. This second school, labeled the feminist standpoint epistemologist by Harding, argues that the only basis of unbiased knowledge of the world is women's own direct experience. These writers contend that it is the standpoint of the oppressed woman which provides the clearest vision of social relations. The position was initially articulated via the slogan, "The personal is political," and is today developed into a critique of abstract theorizing because it is considered to be the form of knowledge that is furthest removed from a woman's experience. So, when was this? Wait, when was this written?
This was first published in 1990, this book.
So 1990, they were talking about this stuff. The personal is political. I mean, that's old, but they were laying the groundwork probably before this for this
all the
kind of
citations are from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. This kind of postmodern, like whatever. And of course, this personal is political thing only applies to feminists, not even feminist women specifically, right? Like if you're a man, your personal experience doesn't matter because it's patriarchal. If you're a woman who isn't feminist, your position, your experience doesn't matter. So this is only being used as a tool for ideologues to basically like push forward whatever. Like I'm sorry, I'm going to make a Warhammer thing. They're like orcs that think that they can like, make things real because they believe it enough. Isn't that like how it works? Go faster, right?
It's how the Gnostic spark of the divine inside you works as well. So yeah,
yes,
it's an apt comparison. But I think it just needs to be highlighted again. The only basis of unbiased knowledge of the world is women's own direct experience. This is, of course, why 30 years later not 30 years later for this, but over the 30 years that followed this, they had to start talking about internalized sexism and internalized patriarchy. Because they basically realized a fundamental flaw of saying women's opinion is reality is that some women disagree with this particular whatever this is that they're trying to construct. So they had to, of course, come up with a way of invalidating those women, which was to say, you've internalized the misogyny of the patriarchy, you have internalized sexism, you're being a handmaiden of the patriarchy, and all of these sorts of things. So that's what they used later to start removing the opinions of women that don't line up with them.
Which is really ironic because my research is uncovering that these women are basically handmaidens for robber barons who want to neutralize any kind of what you might consider, what is functionally men's boundary setting and policing in order to be able to engage in widespread theft. So to give an example with the big thing that I've been researching, of course, is commodity markets. They've switched these kinds of marketplaces from the free market system, which is, no matter how you look at it, it is constructed by what men do. The free market system is a masculine imperative. It is something that men are drawn to: risk, competition, and they have basically pathologized it and replaced it with a financialization model that removes risk by socializing it to the taxpayer. And all of these women yapping about women's ways of knowing, they are functionally a mechanism that enables the removal of all of the boundary setting that men naturally do and the expectations that men place on things like business and commerce. They remove that all so that they can now, these rapacious and very powerful men, ironically, can operate completely free, can steal completely without any oversight, and then they can make these ridiculous gambles and know that in this world, risk and the expectation that men operate in a environment of risk is it's considered ideologically incorrect. So it's all justified. Removing risk, socializing risk to the taxpayer is all justified by saying that men are wrong. That men's desire to have a free market is wrong. Men's desire to keep a gold standard is wrong. Any kind of expectation that big entities eat their own risk is wrong. And that all of the problems are resolved by removing the free market and replacing it with a controlled system that allows banks to capitalize their gains and socialize their losses. And this woman is creating the preconditions for all of that while talking about how, I don't know, women's ways of knowing are superior. I don't know if that made any sense, but
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's something that's really weighing on my mind, because these women aren't actually, they are themselves handmaidens. and they're doing this because they get a lot of money from it. Because it is a complete grift culture that they are handmaidens of. Okay, I'll step off my soapbox.
All right. That's okay. I got a super chat from Easy E again for, what is that? $5. And Easy E says, let's see. He says, I can't believe Marie Curie was such a renowned patriarchal figure in her field. Yes.
I really respect Marie Curie, and the reason why I do is because she had a mobile X-ray unit that she used to help diagnose injuries from World War I. So she was somebody who had at least based on that kind of information, had an ethical drive to serve. So I appreciate that. But go ahead, Brian.
Well, I don't think he was attacking her. I think he was literally saying
no. But of course, that would be considered patriarchy, because God forbid a woman be concerned about.
Well, when a woman is successful, feminists take credit for it, like it's only because of them that this was possible. So that's why they talk about these women in history that were probably just hardworking women that just for whatever reason became an anomaly. Of course, the fact that I guess it, like Marie Curie is probably an exception to that, but like if a woman just did something that men do all the time, I don't think that it should necessarily be pedestalized or like engraved into the halls of history. But it does happen because we just like to celebrate women doing stuff that men do all the time. So, but if it's exceptional, it's worthy. But feminists want to take credit for whatever women do if it's good, but not when it's bad, right? So.
Well, they don't even want to take responsibility for the things that they say. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, by the way, guys, feedthebadger.com/justtip if you want to send us a message. Go get those super chows in. This is interesting stuff.
All right. Teal Deer, you were trying to say something. Did you want to say something?
Was I?
I thought because I saw your guy light up, so.
Oh, no, that might have just been because I moved my chair to grab another book because I wanted to double check a reference which I had in this one that we're working on.
I see. Okay. All right, then. Never mind. Okay, so let us move on through the paper. Okay, that is the very way that mainstream science and social science construct knowledge is biased against women. Feminist standpoint epistemologists assert that we need a new feminist methodology which is closer to women's own experience. This is argued partly on the basis that abstraction itself is problematic, and partly that the social institutions within which abstraction takes place are run by men and reflect their interests. Mankinnon argues that currently men's thought is constituted as objective, which they put in quotes, and women's as subjective, with the former being more authoritative than the latter. Men objectify women. This objectification is simultaneously both general and sexual. Women's resistance must be by embracing their subjective experience. In this way, women can resist their objectification.
Wait. So patriarchy says that. Okay. Oh God.
You want me to read it again? Do you want me to read it again?
No. Okay, no. So patriarchy says that men's experience is objective and women's experience is subjective. And then they argue that yes, that's the case. So they agree that
no, it's not patriarchy
agreeing.
that does that. It's a thinker named Mankinnon who argues that currently men's thought is constituted as objective and women's as subjective, with the former being more authoritative than the latter. So they're making the argument that because men, and this is making a claim, by the way, about women too, like this Mankinnon person is arguing that women, their thought is subjective, therefore, because men's thought is objective, and we live in a society that treats the objective as more authoritative than the subjective, therefore, being objective is basically patriarchy. So they're making the argument that, observing reality and like recording that and then like operating on that basis, like water, if I go in there and I try to breathe water, I'll drown because I know that this is how water works. And feminists say, well, that's like a man thing to say. How do you know you won't develop gills? Like, or whatever. I don't know. Like, you see what I'm saying? So they're basically making the argument that being objective, that is a male thing, therefore it's patriarchal. Being subjective is female, therefore it's anti-patriarchal, it's resistance. And that's because men objectify women, you see. Are you following? Or am I not explaining it well?
But they're also saying that that patriarchy enforces the idea that men's thought is objective and that women's thought is subjective. That she's also appealing to that in there, that she's saying, okay, so patriarchy says that men are objective and more authoritative because they're objective, and that women are subjective and therefore less authoritative. So she's not arguing the idea that women are more subjective and men more objective. She's saying that this is true, and then it follows that women are more accurate or actually should be considered more authoritative in their assumptions. And another thing that I noticed that's really interesting is that the process by which she's arriving to that conclusion. Okay, so she's saying that currently men's thought is constituted as objective and women's is subjective, is that men objectify women and thus victimize them, and then women resist that objectification, which gives them a greater authority in terms of what's actually happening in reality. So the person who is subject to victimization has greater understanding than their oppressor, which is the slave dialectic, I think. Unless my brain is not processing something correctly right now. The idea that the slave understands more than the master, applied to men and women, which makes absolutely no sense, but there it is. She's saying that because men victimize women with their objectification, women have more authority in their understanding. Of course, like why not, right?
Of course.
Oh yeah, it goes back to the women's reality book and the male system and the female system thinking. men only operate in the male system, whereas women operate in both the male system because they're forced to, because patriarchy, and the female system, which is their own preferred system. And you might remember from that book, the Schaaf book, when she was talking about her therapy section and what she called reality testing, which meant testing things out within the white male system frame, within this objective frame, whereas she preferred a more therapeutic process of basically whatever you say is true. So within her practice, it would be if someone came in and said, I'm depressed, the male system would say, okay, why? What is causing this? What are you feeling? Are there any triggers for it? Can we treat it? Because those things are sort of objectively measurable, whereas she would favor that female process where it's, it's not about the nail, it's about how the nail makes me feel. Which is why she says, women should never buck. Then of course she is. If she feels she's married to a chauvinist, then of course she is.
I just want to point out here that my work into literature, cognitive modalities, has indicated to me that women do not actually have access to men's cognitive modality. Not commonly, anyway. There are some weirdos like Emily Bronte and Ayn Rand, but aside from them, both of whom probably would be excommunicated by feminists, there is no indication that women have the ability to understand how men think at all. Now, there is actually some indication that men come much closer to understanding how women think, but based on, again, my analysis of how cognition is rendered in literature, women don't understand how men think. And honestly, it would probably be beneficial if they did, because they would realize that objectification is nonsense, that the way that men think is not actively harmful, and when he's silent, he's not plotting your demise or how to oppress you. And there would be a lot more harmony between the sexes. But of course, the other problem is that women have convinced themselves that they have a priori access to all human cognition. And the reality is, the reason why women have convinced themselves that is because their solipsism is so complete. They are so in their own modality, they can't even understand that any other modality possibly could exist. Whereas men do. They do understand that women are sort of a separate creature with its own drives and appetites. But women don't. And there are some really interesting findings as well from literature, but that's one of the big ones. I have now tested something like 85 female authors, and none of them can operate in the masculine cognitive modality. None of them really even come close. They can maybe the ones who are really open to observation can create a model of how a man operates and what he does, but they can't access the interiority at all. Right? I mean, and the thing is that, Tolstoy, War and Peace, he comes very close to actually occupying the interiority of a woman. And then there's Proust and Henry James, both of whom actually have a genuine female-typed cognitive modality. I don't know if they're just employing it because it's native to them or because they've cultivated it, but no woman can do it. And like I said, Emily Bronte comes closest, and Ayn Rand. And Ayn Rand is very strange, a very strange person. She actually doesn't really come in. She doesn't really have a. She has the same sort of modality as Faust. I've called it like philosophical weirdo modality. It's like separate from both male and female. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that we are dealing with ignorance upon ignorance, like self-defensive ignorance.
Layers.
Exactly. All right.
Like an onion. Okay. Back to this. Qualitative. Oh, let me see if there's any super chats or anything. No, nothing yet. Okay. Qualitative techniques which allow women to speak for themselves are considered to be more, I think is what it's supposed to say, more in keeping with the feminist methodology by reducing the amount of distortion that a patriarchally based science would introduce. In practice, this means a methodological imperative to use qualitative rather than quantitative methods to interview women and report faithfully on their views. Oakley's research on women's views of childbirth is a classic example of this. The introduction of the experiences of women into social science is considered an important corrective to distorted theories. This approach goes along with a distrust of meta-theorizing, since this is considered to be more affected by patriarchal bias than the words of women interviewees. So how would we rephrase this in layman's terms?
They want more quantity than quality.
They want to democratize the reality, basically.
Yeah, so they want qualitative information, not quantitative information. So they basically want people talking about how they feel, how they subjectively experience things, and less of the quantitative methods, as in literally objectively measuring things. So it's not like what score did you get on the test? It was how did taking the test make you feel? How that is, according to them, more valuable than what was the score you got on the test. This is why you've seen increasingly in the social sciences more and more pushes for qualitative data rather than quantitative data, because quantitative data tends to just prove them wrong, like repeatedly. So they like to just sort of try and hide behind people's subjective experience. And it's annoying because qualitative data can be useful insofar as it can kind of give you like a temperature gauge, I suppose, on how some people think or feel about things. And that can be useful, but it's not something that you should be taking as priority over, okay, this is like objectively what is happening.
Yeah, of course. All right, Alison, do you want to say anything or should I just keep going?
I'm telling you, this is all comes out of the modality, the cognitive modality of women versus men, and the sheer arrogance that women have that their modality comprises the entire human expression, the entire human psychological being, cognition, self, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, the point there about, we should distrust meta-theorizing, well, that's basically that's replicability is what they're basically talking about there, is if you have multiple studies and they all find the same thing, well, that's you creating some sort of meta-theory by taking this study, this study, this study, they've all done the same thing, they've all replicated it, they've found the same results over and over and over. That is even more skeptical. You should be even more skeptical of that. Because that is you being ultra uber mega patriarchal, because you're really attempting to define things. And of course, when you get more and more abstract in that sort of data processing means, you move more and more away from feels, which of course invalidates what you're doing, apparently.
I wonder where that replicatability crisis came from.
The mystery, ain't it?
Mysterious. Just like that fifth person in the room with us.
So I'm gonna change, because you're not playing the game, so I'm gonna change the background to something else. Hold on a second. Let me read a little bit more, and then I'll let.
I can get in the rig and start playing.
No. I'm just saying you're just T-posing, so I'll just put up an image. It's okay. I got something. Qualitative techniques which allow women to speak for themselves is considered. No, wait, I already read that bit, didn't I? Now, the limits of this approach to feminist methodology are the limits of the views of the women interviewed. Concepts and notions about structures outside their experience are ruled out. I think this is very problematic, since it is not clear why women's everyday experiences should be less contaminated by patriarchal notions than other theories. All knowledge is mediated via ideas and concepts, and those available are necessarily affected by patriarchal relations. Systematic inquiry and theoretical development are more likely to elucidate the nature of patriarchal relations.
And that's how they justify, your internalized oppression. You've internalized the patriarchy. It's any view that you have as a woman in society. There is a concept or an idea that thing may have been contaminated by some sort of patriarchal notion. So you got to decolonize your mind.
Decolonize my mind, and just try to eject all of my knowledge of the systemic implications of all this nonsense I'm hearing. Okay, I think that would otherwise be termed as a lobotomy. I have to lobotomize myself to become a feminist. Actually, you know what's really funny is I'm not even talking metaphorically. Well, it's some metaphorically somewhat. Feminists are pursuing some kind of soft lobotomy, and
I don't think that's
because
hyperbolic at all.
they are actively socializing or conditioning themselves to decouple their actions from their consequences and shove patriarchy between the two, which fundamentally reduces their sense of effectiveness over their lives, increases their learned helplessness, and makes them less functional beings. Which is why me and Brian watched that the dating panel, and
Yeah.
you have on but the thing is, the clearest counterexample to the very thesis of the dating panel was just looking at one side. One side is composed, dignified, they're prepared to step up, they're prepared to work for a relationship and bring something to the table. And the other side is a bunch of dysregulated chimpanzees that get the impression if you threw a dildo on the stage, they'd immediately start fighting over it. I'll leave it as an exercise to the viewer now that I've described which was the male side and which was the female side. And let's get back to.
I found another debate, by the way, on that same channel. It's feminists versus men. So that one should be. I mean, look, I'm not learning anything from those videos, but it's fun to watch. Okay, so back to this.
You know what? The last one, I did learn something. I saw this literal visual representation of the problem with modern pair bonding, and the problem is not the men. No matter what the conservatives say, it's not the ones who are stepping up and bringing something to the equation and expect themselves to bring something to the equation and expect themselves to take responsibility if things don't go wrong. It's the dysregulated monkeys on the other side that are the problem. That's why pair bonding isn't happening, because the women are not in a position to be able to do this activity. They are not fit. They are simply unfit for this activity. They're like a 600-pound couch potato. And then you're like, oh, are you going to run a marathon next Tuesday? And that's not going to happen. They are completely unfit for the activity of pair bonding. And that was like something that just opened my eyes. Like, I'm like, we can argue all of the mechanics, all of the statistics, all of that, but the honest truth is right there, right in front of you, visually presented. You have one group composed, ready, and the other group dysregulated, incoherent, and self-destructive. Nothing can happen. There's nothing that can go forward from that. All right, I will step off.
Okay, so Harding, 1986, provides a clear and erudite account of the problematic debate between the feminist empiricists and the feminist standpoint positions and treads a delicate balance between the two. The fragmentation of the scientific project, which is a consequence of postmodernist thought, is both a strength and a weakness. She argues that while the first group, the feminist empiricists, have made valuable contributions, their best work is in fact done when they make use of their standpoint as women to ask new questions, not merely the old. That is, when they adopt some aspects of the second school's approach. This is a conversation of two absolute, evil organizations deciding which one is better suited to destroying society. Like that, and that's what the argument is about, right? I mean, we got the feminist empiricists which I would argue doesn't exist. And then we have the feminist standpoint position. That's why the standpoint theorists won. I mean, that's where we're living, the paradigm we live under right now, right? Because the empiricists, they couldn't be empirical if they believe in a bullshit ideology, or unless, you know.
Yes, 100%.
It was doomed from the start.
It was doomed from the start. It was a doomed project from the start. Completely doomed.
Yeah.
You can't have empiricism and standpoint theory in the same room. They have to fight to the death, and standpoint theory always wins. Okay.
All right. Special chat's being a bit special today, but okay. So, or I think that's special chat. Yeah. Harding maintains that the most important issue is the setting of the questions to be researched and allocation of resources to do this, drawing upon a post-Kuhnian recognition of the central issue of the social construction of the research questions themselves. Science is a black box, crucially structured by the political context in which it operates. Women, and indeed different groups of women, need to be able to set their own research agendas. Well, wait. If you say that science is a black box, crucially structured by the political context in which it operates, doesn't that make it subjective? I mean, by your standard, because it changes depending on the political context. And if the personal is political, like, just roll with it. Yeah, just roll with it.
Just let it happen to you, Brian. Don't resist.
All right. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about this, Teal dear, or
well, it's regarding the science as a black box structured by the political context. No, we know what the scientific method is. We know how these things function. We've got literally centuries of data demonstrating how the scientific method works and that it works. Now, what this sort of seems to basically imply is, it's a black box. You don't really know what's going on in there, but it's structured by the political context in which it operates. This is going to be later on, in later decades after this book was published, is going to be used to say, you see, we live in a white supremacist society. Therefore, white supremacy is shaping science. Therefore, why does science, when you do things like IQ testing by ethnicity, why do black people score lower on average than white people? You see, that's because society is white supremacist, and it set up the IQ tests to get those results because it is racist. That's what you're getting at there. It's basically saying any form of scientific method that is created by society is going to be informed by what that society is. So that was one example regarding the angle of race. They can do the same thing where it's like, science, because we live in a capitalist society, therefore science is influenced by the concept of capital. It's influenced by money and all of that stuff. So things that generate revenue are going to be prioritized over things that do not. And that is going to be the only thing that happens. Now, we know that it can happen, but it also doesn't happen. So this is just what they rely on. It's basically saying science can't really be science because science can't ever actually be neutral. It's always being influenced by something.
Right. Okay. Harding is ambivalent as to whether some methods of seeking knowledge are better than others. Indeed, her concept of science dissolves into a more general notion of knowledge, as she refuses to privilege one form of knowledge creation over another. Knowledge creation. Okay. She slides towards a relativism in which each social group cites its own knowledge, a postmodernist, post-structuralist position, but draws back from its full implications. Ad was right. We should have listened to Ad.
Oh man, that's some serious deep lore.
I know.
I actually talked to Ad. He makes sense. He made sense.
No, it's just that he's very foreign, so English is not his first language. So yeah.
What would he use? The bisexuals are coming to get us or something. What was his thing that he said? Oh man,
What?
Well, what he used to have a tagline ad, right? That he'd come into the chat and he'd always be like saying
Postmodernism.
postmodern. Oh yes, it's postmodern.
He had a YouTube
Homosexual.
channel. I think it just was him saying postmodernism with like a techno background beat.
Yeah, and that voice, that heavy German accent.
Yeah. Was it German? I think he was like Swedish or something. I don't know.
I thought
But
it was German.
we're,
Okay, we're
I don't
getting
know.
into
I don't
the-
know.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna get in there as well.
Yeah, get in there.
So of course we come back here to, female feelings are knowledge and science. But a very interesting thing to note here is obviously it's different groups of people have different things, and this author, this Harding person, is leading towards some sort of relativism. That's kind of important because once again there is nothing objective. There's no objective frame. It's the glass test with the waterline. If there's nothing objective, then you can't tell where that waterline should be. And so if everything's relative, well, then the waterline won't change according to the horizon because it's only relative to the glass.
Right. That's a
what
good
it's
point.
setting up.
The waterline test, yes. That's why women fail it. Okay. I don't know, man. Y'all ladies are not making the case to keep your rights. I'm just saying, you're not doing a good job. All right, the strength of Harding's work is her demonstration of the greater significance of the construction of the questions. Why are these sentences written this way? Listen, the strength of Harding's work is her demonstration of the greater significance of the construction of the questions to be asked and how this has been patriarchally organized rather than the narrower question of whether specific methods of investigation are more feminist than others. This method of investigation isn't feminist enough. we need it to be more feminist. Turn it to 11.
Yeah, you're right. The nested quality of these sentences is
oh
torture.
my god.
It's
Okay,
a
the
mind,
position.
it's an undisciplined mind, I think.
Yes, it's a mind that fails the water level test. The position taken in this book is that the selection of questions and the resources devoted to their research is a social and political issue which is shaped by patriarchal institutions, but that the answer to any given question is not one which is socially or politically relative. The position in this book is that the selection of questions and the resources devoted to their research is a social and political issue shaped by patriarchal institutions. So the questions devoted to research is patriarchal. But
Yes,
the answer...
the questions that are being asked are patriarchally biased.
Yes. But the answer is not one which is socially or politically relative. So, okay. I'm dying inside a little bit. Okay. A weakness in Harding's work is her ambivalence to the point of abandoning that aspect of the project of science, which is to create universalistically.
Yes, that is actually the word as written in the book.
Okay. Universalistically. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not the right word to use. It is technically a word, but it's not the right word to use in that sentence.
Yeah.
It honestly falls into the problem that I encounter with a lot of just feminist academics in general. They bloviate, they overcomplicate everything that they're saying. I think it is partially just because they're desperate to be seen as being smart and they want their stuff to be kind of impenetrable. It's something which I've noticed a lot of the time. Like you just go through feminist books or feminist, the peer-reviewed stuff on feminism, and it's like you just need to have half a dozen decoder rings to work out what they're actually getting at. But then when you actually read hard science things, which you think, well, these are very complicated, we're going into like physics or medicine or something like that. No, it's all written in like as clearer English as the author can manage, like just simple, easy to understand. You can just plow through it and understand it all immediately. And I think it's just by design that these people structure their things terribly.
Yeah. Okay. A weakness in Harding's work is her ambivalence to the point of abandoning that aspect of the project of science, which is to create universalistically authoritative knowledge on the basis of systematic inquiry. In focusing on the social construction of science, she denies the possibility of this project. In this, I think she goes too far, in that she intends to deny the utility and validity of each body of science within its own terms. There is one type of epistemology neglected by Harding in her otherwise excellent and thorough review of the literature, which does retain the scientific project, that of realism. The realist approach maintains that there are deep structures which can be discovered with systematic inquiry. Realists like Bhaskar, I guess, argue that there are deep social structures, the discovery of which is key to our understanding of gender relations. These structures are not necessarily visible or immediately knowledgeable. This approach contrasts with both positivist and standpoint epistemologies. Systematic study and scientific analysis are necessary to uncover these structures, which are emergent properties of social practices. They contain a duality of both structure and action. The theoretical project in this book is realist in the sense that it is engaged in an identification of the underlying structures of social life. However, I do not think we need to make... Oh yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is... We need to have a breath here and some response to this. So there are underlying social structures of society and social life. Underlying social structures of social life in society. And we can find these empirically. I just want to propose something, right? So we're looking at social structures, are we? So social organization on a systemic level, okay? Can we look at receipts, paper trails, where the money leads in discovering these social structures? Or are they all just basically projected? Like you take the contents of this woman's id and vomit them all over everything in society. And that's the structure. The Cheerios that she ate in the morning. That's the structure of society. Because the thing is, if you follow the money, if you follow the paperwork, yeah, there are some pretty big social structures. They start with they start with F and end with M. And they are definitely organizing a lot of stuff. But it's like, the thing is that she talks about empirically finding these social structures, but these social structures never deviate from what they've decided they are when they started the investigation into the social structures. I just wanted to point that out because it was aggravating me.
Well, you're never going to find these structures because they're invisible anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So a patriarchy that has absolutely not a single cent to its name. In other words, the systems of systems that creates this thing where men are always trying to prioritize the benefit of other men over women. Yet not a single cent to its name, really. But the fact that
paper trail that it exists, but it definitely exists.
But it definitely exists. And also the effect of feminism definitely doesn't exist in society, despite the fact it has probably $1 trillion a year paper trail. Okay.
Well, this is because patriarchy is, you see, that duality of it's the duality of structure and action. So it exists, but it doesn't exist because it's invisible. But it's just a product of everyone's actions, but you can't prove it that it's actually there. So you sort of see where they're going. It's just basically the way of saying, I'm right no matter what because I'm a woman and I have feelings. And my feelings are science, as we just established.
And also I'm a victim, which makes me even more right than that.
Yep.
Right on a fundamental level that man could never experience. And not right because I have a cognitive modality that excludes the male by definition. So I don't even know, I can't even be aware that there is another cognitive modality that I don't have access to. No, I'm right because I am absolutely, completely, and utterly right. And they call men egotistical. All right.
Yeah. However, I do not think we need to make the distinction between necessary and contingent structures of a social system in the way that Sayer suggests, since patriarchy is an open social system which can take a variety of forms. It is like the devil and God at the same time. It is invisible. It is ever present and filleth all things.
But that is kind of important. It's an open system which can take a variety of forms. So you can't actually properly, fully define it because it could be anything. It could be anywhere.
This is a freaking nightmare.
So your definition of patriarchy has to be forever moving goalposts.
Yep. I got a Rumble rant from Kit888. Thank you, Kit. And they give us $5 and says, keep making a difference. Well, I appreciate that. I every so often it's nice to hear people appreciate what we do, despite the fact that we're cartoons. All right, yes. So now we have a whole section on patriarchy. The variety of definitions of patriarchy has been a problem in some early texts. However, it would be surprising if developing theories of patriarchy did not use the term in slightly different ways. So before I get into that, I don't know how they're going to say this, but when feminist definitions of patriarchy is not the same as what patriarchy has meant historically, like, you know, basically tracing the line from the father, that's all. I think that was basically what it was. I mean, there's like a religious context for patriarchy as well, and maybe that's like why they're attacking it and calling it patriarchy. But their definition of patriarchy is not the historically, let's say, you know, I don't know, sensible definition that most people would use. So, okay. Patriarchy is a concept. As a concept, has a history of usage among social scientists, such as Weber, who used it to refer to a system of government in which men ruled societies through their position as heads of households. Okay,
can I just point something out? That is basically saying that patriarchy is a society that's a society.
Yeah.
Like there is no society, not even the matrilinear ones, where men don't occupy that role. Right, of protector and provider for their social group. There's no, and also for most social mammals, this is also the case. Right, so when they say society is a patriarchy, they're basically saying society is a society. Well, thank you. That's great, but if
it doesn't have to be a society, Alison. It doesn't have to be if we break it. I mean, what is smashing the patriarchy if it isn't smash society?
Yeah, and we're going to create a wonderful society in which there is no control over lesbian domestic violence because there are no men controlling it.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be
let the lesbians let them fight. Maybe we should create like a space for lesbians to engage in domestic violence and make it, you know, make them wear kaiju suits and put them around a bunch of like toy buildings, like models.
Yeah,
so you can destroy them all while they beat each other up.
That's such man thinking right there. Man thinking. That's some serious.
Yeah,
man.
It is man thinking. Look, I mean, we used to have gladiatorial games, but we can like let the lesbians work that out. We'll turn them into gladiators, and then we'll make movies about them. Yep. All right.
Okay.
Okay. In this use, well, I don't know if Teal Deer wanted to say anything. I don't want to like cut you off. You got to jump in.
No, that is basically it. Yes, patriarchy is in fact society. Society is in fact a society. Yes, that is what this person has fundamentally said. But it's basically just like if men rule anything in a household, if they have any sort of control over their household, then that is necessarily patriarchy. Now you can go sort of into that and say like, well, okay, why do men do that? Well, as it turns out, women want them to do that. This has been confirmed literally hundreds of times. I'm sick of people trying to deny this. Women want men who like earn more than them and pay for them and keep them and all of this stuff. But again, that's another reason why earlier they had to try to find ways to dismiss women who speak against this particular ideology, because they've just internalized the patriarchy and so on and so forth.
I'm going to throw like a basic endocrinology wrench into this. This is something that women do on a hormonal level. So men signal testosterone. It's not itself because it's non-volatile, so it doesn't become a smell. But the metabolites of testosterone are perceived by women, which creates calm, alertness, and also interest in men. Probably the man who's doing the signaling, but men generally, if there's more than one of them. So there's an actual hormonal component to the submission, and that is men's biology creates calm and focus in women. So it's like, on a fundamental level, and also people orientate, in particular women, orientate to what they perceive to be the most dominant individual in the room. And guess what signals the most dominant individual in the room? Testosterone. So it's like this is all like patriarchy is fundamental to the animal, and it's not just fundamental to us, it's fundamental to any social animal. If you have a social animal, it's most likely arranging itself around dominant males, just because of the signaling and the fact that the mammalian limbic architecture doesn't change that much, right? It's conservative. Evolution is conservative. So if prairie voles are doing it and wolves are doing it and antelope are doing it, we're probably doing it too. And nobody wants to actually acknowledge that. I mean, we're doing it at a level of complexity that's probably significantly greater because of our cortex, but we're still on a fundamental level arranging ourselves socially on that same model. Who is the most dominant individual? Who is responsible for the security of the group? The one with the most testosterone. Who's that going to be? Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. It's like it's not even a question. It's written right into how we respond to each other hormonally. All right, I'll step off my endocrinology.
It's fairly typical, I think. I mean, even if you want to go into the pair bonding dynamic of that, well, why do men want to protect women and all of that? Well, the answer is vasopressin. Like, we literally know that if you up that in territorial animals, behaviors like mate guarding and what you would call jealousy and envy increases. Well, as it turns out, that when you have that pair bond with someone in the human species, your vasopressin levels rise, which causes this protective desire. Like, what do you expect? And as it turns out, women are quite good at generating that in men. So, hurdy-durdy-dur, men want to protect women because literally on that hormonal level again, you're getting that bump in something that leads to that level of behavior, or that kind of behavior.
Yeah, well, something, we're not animals, something, feminism, patriarchal dominance is better. Like,
yeah, human dignity becomes a really big hurdle for these sorts of people when it comes to that.
Yeah, but I don't even understand why this is less dignified. All right, it's simple. Okay, it's not an absolute. There are cortical factors going on. The pair bonding is a lot more complex than just a male and female animal, because there's kin groups and all kinds of other stuff. But that to me seems more dignified, recognizing that, than saying things like men inherently want to oppress women in order to benefit themselves in some sort of undefined way, which is another thing. How do men benefit from oppressing women? How do men benefit from being dominant or constantly custodial towards women?
Oh, well, this book will tell you on the very next page.
Oh, really?
Well, in the next couple
Okay.
of pages, yes, it will
And I
tell
have
you.
predicted the next twist in this twisty tale of
It's not
moving
really much
forward.
of a twist. It's your woman staying at home and pressing buttons on automated white goods is what actually creates society, as opposed to the men going out and doing things. That's just a spoiler, though. It is actually that simple. But yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
All right, we're gonna try and get there. In this usage, the denomination of younger men who were not household heads was as important, if not more important, than the element of men's domination over women via the household. The meaning of the term has evolved since Weber, especially in the writings by radical feminists, who developed the element of the domination of women by men and who paid less attention to the issue of how men dominated each other, and by dual systems theorists who have sought to develop a concept and theory of patriarchy as a system which exploits alongside capitalism and sometimes racism too.
This was
Oh
the
my
birth
God.
of intersectionality.
Yeah. All the buzzwords. Where's the homophobia and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, though? We got to work those in there. Well, this is the 90s.
Yeah, that doesn't exist yet. They haven't heard of that.
They haven't found that there's utility for that yet.
Well, this was before 9/11 and Muslims didn't exist until that happened.
Yeah. All right. So, Alison, you want to say anything about that, or should I just keep going?
In the interest of getting through this.
Yeah, it's painful, I know. All right. Yet, the practice of incorporating a generational element into the definition of patriarchy has been continued by some of the major contemporary writers on this question, most importantly by Hartman. I think that the incorporation of a generational element into the definition is a mistake. So, like, the idea that what patriarchy used to mean, which is like, the essentially tracing the family through the father, which is why wives take their husband's last names and that name continues. It's like why we have these ideas of, like if you are, and I used to say this, like if you're a warrior on the battlefield and you're announcing yourself, you will say what family you belong to, right? That is supposed to come with something. It means something to sort of like announce your genealogy. And that comes from the name that you take. So like if you have a last name like Taylor or whatever, it's like your name. Like my last name is Martinez, which means son of Martin. So it's somewhere in my line there was someone named Martin who was of some importance. And that's why we pass the last name. That's what patriarchy is. It's like connects you to your own ancestry, right? And we're just eliminating that. It doesn't even mean that anymore. We're cutting that out. Haven't you heard? Women hyphenate their last names now, which means they take the last names of two men.
The generational element is a mistake, but that is actually a very important thing, though. Like that, it is about removing the connection from the parent. I actually think that is a very important part of it, because they want to remove that connection. They want to isolate people from that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what they want to remove, the connection to your own history. So like, why is it there are so many people right now who, especially young people, who don't have fathers? Like, so we've removed the father from home for about, in some, parts of the population, it could be like 3 or 4 generations removed. So there's no connection. You don't know anything about your own history. You don't know, it takes away part of your meaning as a person, right?
It's
so
also
this
destroying paternity assurance, which is another big part of that patrilineal line and following like that. It was basically a sort of on your honor for the woman, you're only with one guy.
Yes.
Which is something they want to get rid of because that holds women to standards as well.
True that. But okay. It implies a theory of gender inequality in which this aspect of men's domination over each other is central to men's domination of women. So okay. Yet in practice, few contemporary theories of gender inequality establish that this is the case. For instance, while Hartman uses a definition which incorporates generational hierarchy among men, this is not central to her theory of patriarchy, which focuses upon men's organizational ability to expropriate women's labor in paid work and hence in the household. Thus, inclusion of generation in the definition is confusing. It is a contingent element and best omitted. So, they want to remove what could be the most important part of this definition, which is that the generational aspect, right? And of course, they don't like hierarchy of any kind, even though hierarchy is reality. So they're trying to eliminate that. I mean, to me, hierarchy is reality. Like, there's no, I'm sorry, but there's just no such thing as equality. Like, there's just fairness, there's justice, that's it. But anyway, before developing the details of its form, I shall define patriarchy as a system of social structures and practices in which men dominate, oppress, and exploit women. Well, that's the first honest thing that she has said, is basically like the way feminists define patriarchy.
We need some bells and buzzers and stuff to go off. They did it. They actually finally provided a definition, which I can guarantee if you quote any single feminist out there, they will say, no, that's not it.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably disagree with this definition.
Well, yeah, they'll say it's not it because they don't want to be held to it. They want to continue to move the goalposts in whatever arrangement allows them to win in the moment. But yes, this is it. And I also reversed engineered this based on how much times I've talked to feminists. But here's the other thing. If they don't have a definition for their foundational premise that can actually be tested, then they got nothing. Except, women's ways of knowing and women's feelings is scientific evidence. But this premise is 100% false. Like, it's not just hasn't been, it's false. There is no indication that men have constructed patriarchy to benefit themselves, and every indication that they have not. Like, that it doesn't benefit. And then the other thing is that they make this framework and then they regard counter evidence to the framework as somehow evidence of the framework by saying, well, patriarchy hurts men too. No, bitch. No, that's counter evidence to the assertion of feminist patriarchy. You can't just dismiss it by saying, oh, no, that it also is. No, it doesn't work like that. Right? You've asserted that zebras are red and green. Well, no, and every single zebra that you found isn't. Right? So every time we look at this, every time we say, okay, do men actually arrange structures to benefit themselves? The answer is no. In fact, they're much more likely to arrange structures to benefit women and then expect men to make the sacrifices for that to happen. And there's no indication that people generally want to benefit men over women. When they've tested this, they have never found a situation where people would prefer to benefit men over women. Never. So where is the substrate upon which society has built all of these things to benefit men? The answer is that men seem to derive a benefit from protecting and providing women. And I don't mean like a personal benefit. It's like a somatic, like an endocrine benefit. And I don't know how to define that as a benefit. It's like an instinct. And that's what they do over and over and over again. And once you recognize that, all of this feminist posturing becomes less an observation of reality or truth and more something that they developed that triggers the very thing that they deny exists. It's like the perfect super stimulus for men's desire to protect women is feminism. How coincidental. All right.
Have I ever said before that feminism is just the politicization of female nature? Have I ever said that before? Because I'm pretty sure I've said that before.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we've said that before on this channel. Yeah, you probably said it first, but yes, we've been saying this for a long time.
Yeah, it's almost like it's completely true, isn't it?
Almost.
Yes, quite.
Well, but
quite.
It is, but at the same time,
bully.
It's also like feminists hate women wanting men, women wanting to be protected by men, provided for by men, and I don't mean that in the context of this current society where women can adequately provide for themselves but don't feel like they have to. I mean that more in the context of like a mutuality or a complementarianism. But yeah, feminists don't like that about women. They're at war with that in women. And this is where I will push back against the female nature thing. Female nature is to orientate towards men as a source of protection. It is to, and not complete helplessness, because throughout all of human history, and probably since the original origins of hominids, women have had, or females have had, the ability to maintain some level of resource acquisitions themselves. So it's not complete helplessness, it's complementarianism. But women do have an instinct to orientate towards men in the presence of threat. They have an instinct to want to be provided for, because gestation and lactation are extremely calorically expensive and can kill her if she doesn't have a group of people helping out with that. So all of this is inherent to the beast, and feminism hates all of it. Like some of the most physically satisfying things that women experience, and feminism hates them all and wants to eradicate them. So it's like it is politicization of female nature at the same time as it is corruption and condemnation. And I think it's probably also a lot of female intrasexual competition. Feminists are taking absolute glee in destroying the reproductive and sexual potential of other women. Let's be frank.
Yeah, it's the politics of ressentiment.
Yeah, and that is female biology, but then also, the receptivity, the desire to be protected, the desire to, have children with a male, all of that other stuff, not allowed. That is the wrong female biology. That is the female biology that feminists want to destroy. The desire to be taken roughly, destroyed, not allowed. That kind of stuff. And so it's like the politicization of the worst parts of female nature, the resentment, the envy, the insecurity, the solipsism, the intrasexual aggression, the fact that women just can't handle the fact that another woman might be getting something that they're not getting and they don't control. Like all of that is politicized. But that essential, like there's a big component of the essential female animal that's completely, I want to say castrated, that's the wrong word, but just like destroyed in the feminist narrative and not allowed to express itself or even assert itself. And there's more evidence than just what I'm saying here. It's in how feminists arrange, like, have you noticed, Brian, that there's a lot of women who are now starting to talk up about the feminist bullshit? Like,
yes.
If you take this, and it's in a specific area. You take what we're reading now, and this is Starfleet Academy. I call it Starfleet. So this is Starfleet is the entertainment manifestation of what we are reading right now, right? And what I'm seeing is more and more women want to see men who are competent. They want to see men who can navigate obstacles. They want to see heroes. They don't want to see boss babes as much as they want to see heroes, like male heroes, competent men, making competent choices and having moral dilemmas. That's the other thing, what is this man going to decide? What is his ethical system? That is now the competent male hero dealing with a moral, ethical, like a thorny moral, ethical problem is now something we don't see anymore in fiction. And there are women saying, we want this, and speaking out against it. And then, of course, there are feminists saying, oh, pick me, handmaiden, despite the fact that they are the real handmaidens of the real evil. And, I'm seeing this more and more. And then the other thing is that this is literally what romance, in many cases, very badly. I'm not going to say that romance is a a medium that has serious craft issues, and a lot of the times the stuff that the publishing industry pumps out is absolute crap, ideological crap. But this is literally the experience that romance delivers to a woman. And it is the biggest genre in fiction. Like, it bodies every other single genre. And yet feminists hate it. Like, the feminist publishing industry hates it. It's constantly trying to corrupt it into something that is ideologically palatable, which is where all of this, like, this seething crap comes from. And admittedly, it is horrible. But I'm just saying, it's like, there is another aspect to all of this. And it's not just men who are being condemned, but it's anything in women that likes men that's being condemned. And there is a lot in women that sort of biologically, hormonally, socially primed to get this, want to be around their evolutionary partner. Okay, I'll get off my pedestal here.
No, it's fine.
Podium, sorry. I don't think anyone's pedestalizing me.
No, you're not on anybody's pedestal. You could just say, never mind. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they finally admit what patriarchy is, give us a definition. I don't think it'll stick because the feminists will reject it. But anyway, the use of the term social structure is important here, since it clearly implies rejection both of biological determinism and the notion that every individual man is in a dominant position and every woman in a subordinate one. Oh, so wait a minute, we're going to get nuance with men now? Whoa, dude, that's wild. Is this heresy? I mean,
well,
I'm just saying.
To be able to imply that they're going to do that, they're not actually going to do that. We know that they're not.
No, of course not.
They just have to, like, check the bases where they can say, oh, see, we didn't say all, hashtag not all.
Yeah, they're giving themselves plausible
what you actually do.
Yeah. Okay. Patriarchy needs to be conceptualized at different levels of abstraction. At the most abstract level, it exists as a system of social relations. In contemporary Britain, this is present in articulation with capitalism and with racism. However, I do not wish to imply that this is homologous in internal structure with capitalism. At a less abstract level, patriarchy is composed of 6 structures: the patriarchal mode of production, the patriarchal relations in paid work, patriarchal relations in state, male violence, patriarchal relations in sexuality, and patriarchal relations in cultural institutions. So there's different patriarchies, right? There's different structures. There's producing, relations, paid work, in the government, male violence, which is just by itself. I guess it's not. There's only the patriarchy and male violence don't need to be separate things; they're the same thing. Patriarchal relations in sexuality and in cultural institutions. More concretely, in relation to each of these structures, it is possible to identify sets of patriarchal practices which are less deeply sedimented. Structures are emergent properties of practices. Any specific empirical instance will embody the effects not only of patriarchal structures, but also of capitalism and racism. Are you following, or is this too high IQ? You guys following?
I would like to bring up one little point about male violence, and this is actually also from this book. Later on, they have the chapter on violence. They very specifically, when they talk about just male violence in general, the things that they talk about, using violence to uphold society. Male violence, I'm just going to quote, male violence exists in a myriad forms which may be placed on a continuum with rape, wife-beating, and child sexual abuse on one, and sexual harassment and wolf whistles on the other. So men rape children to keep society going, patriarchy and all that. That's what she's getting at when she puts that in there. She also then goes on to bring up the nonsense about how in Britain it's like, oh, you're legally allowed to rape your wife up until some time, and we know that's not true. But it's just one of those woozles that they like to try to bring up every so often.
Alison?
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know how anybody tolerated this crap. Like a bunch of Harridans asserting that men use raping children in order to uphold society. Like, at what point did people look at this and say no? Oh, obviously they didn't. That's what really baffles me. Like the insanity, like the insane people, the people in the insane asylum saying insane things, that's one thing. But the fact that society was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why don't we allow you to make policy? I know how it happened. I'm boggling at it. I'm just like, this is a series of errors. This is a series of very profound errors that I'm seeing that has cascaded into something, a civilization ending.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I assume that it passed because nobody put a spotlight on it. And maybe when they did, they dismissed it like, well, those crazy feminists. Oh, they're just out. This is happening right now. Like right now, there are people when I sometimes I'll see them to come into the chat or I'll run into them online and they'll still be like, why are you still doing this, like, refuting feminism thing? That's so 2007. We're like past that. We're talking about, whatever, like whatever the new thing is. And it's like, guys, if we don't address this, none of that other shit matters. But they keep acting like it's not important. And I think it's because they really underestimate not just how much power this ideology has, not just how influential, like how easily influenced or sort of like moved by this women are, and a lot of men, and that's like the main thing too, and how many men get behind this 100%, and like, they alter law and policy, and they basically just don't want to look at it, they don't want to talk about it. It's like, no matter, like, all these like kind of brave kind of, like, would call themselves brave, or these like wignats online that are like, oh, I'm gonna name the Jew, I'm gonna go after the whatever the enemy is, and they won't go after women. Like, that's the thing that they will not criticize. Is like, but none of this other shit matters, guys. Like, it doesn't matter like how much influence this Middle Eastern government has, or this organization over here. None of that matters if you haven't gotten like the situation with women figured out, because they will be your largest obstacle. Like, this is the thing, like, they don't get. And
there's people understanding this more and more. And
I think that they're starting to.
Asmon Gold always calling out the usual suspects. I wanted to point out, like, it's frustrating because what happens is they'll fixate on this, that, or the other thing, and it's directly downstream of feminism's condemnation of masculinity and our society's decision to deconstruct the ethical toolkit that men have. So free market, policing internally, so criminal behavior, policing immigration, everything becomes this horrible imposition of the patriarchy onto society. But these are the things that society needs to do in order to maintain itself and police the behavior within it to survive. And so everybody's like pointing out to all of these new political manifestations of the same problem over and over again. We have marginalized masculinity. We have constructed a system in which men are saturated with cortisol and can't even really conceptualize that their ethical system needs to be brought online or our society is going to implode. And that ethical system remains dormant. And we see the downstream effects of not having the benefit of it, not having the policing, not having the immigration control, not having the sensible, military response, not having the criminal policing, not having the audits, not having the free market, allowing for price control, which enables actual investment in commodities and the things that are needed by society. Like, we're arguing over all of the downstream effects of this. And it is, sorry, I just heard something crash. I'm wondering if a cat just tipped something off of something. You know how it is with cats. No, you probably don't.
Yeah. No, I'm allergic. I mean, I do in the sense I know that they're agents of chaos.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's just been a moment of chaos somewhere. Okay, but anyway, so they're looking at the downstream effects of the removal of specifically the way that men see ethical principles from society. And then you're like, but the problem is that toolkit, that ethical toolkit, has been removed because feminism has turned it into some kind of existential threat to everybody. Right? And then you're seeing the downstream effects of that, but you're never going to resolve those effects until you deal with where they are coming from, which is the marginalization of masculinity. And where is that coming from? It's coming from feminism. It's like all the people who are complaining about Starfleet Academy. If you took what we are talking about now and turned it into a TV show, it would be Starfleet Academy. That's where this is coming from. All of the crap in the gaming industry is coming from this, the thing we're reading right now. All of the crap in the TV, all of the crap in the movie, all of the crap in the animation. It's coming from what we're reading right now. It is downstream of what we're reading right now. Every political thing that people are arguing about is downstream of what we are reading right now. So yes, we're going to continue to talk about it.
Yes.
And to some people, we're going to continue to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's it's a slow going thing, but I think there is a change. At least in terms of people being aware of it. But all right, so we're at 2:44, so I got about 15 minutes. I think we're getting close to the end here, so we can probably finish it. All right. I got a Rumble rant from NobaFan21 who gives us $1 and says, I wonder if the real feminist goal was to pressure men into creating the patriarchy they feared as a Machiavellian tactic to create their society in their image. See, we were right about men. Well, yes, if men, I think that if they get a reaction, it is sort of like baiting them so that they can point to it and use it. But I don't know that they're gonna. It's not necessarily the reaction that would be real oppression, because if it was, they wouldn't be able to complain. So, it's. Oh, so I'm sorry, Tilda. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just shifting. That was it.
Okay.
I want to get through it. There's only the 6 structures of patriarchy left.
Yeah. Let's do it.
It's tiny, and then we can discuss, and you can go and do whatever it is you have to do.
Yeah, okay. The 6 structures have casual effects upon each other, both reinforcing and blocking, but are relatively autonomous. The specification of several rather than simply one base is necessary in order to avoid reductionism and essentialism. The presence of only one base, for instance, reproduction for Firestone and rape Brown-Miller, is the reason for their difficulty with historical change and cultural variation. It is not necessary to go to the other extreme of denying significant social structures to overcome the change of essentialism, as some of the postmodernist, post-structuralists have done. The signs identified are real, deep structures and necessary to capture the variation in gender relations in westernized societies. Patriarchal production relations in the household are my first structure. It is through these that women's household labor is expropriated by their husbands or cohabitees. The woman may receive her maintenance in exchange for the labor, especially when she is not engaged in wage labor. Housewives are the producing class, while husbands are the expropriating class. So wait, husbands don't work?
Husbands don't produce. It's just women putting clothes in the washer and pushing the button on the dishwasher. That's what actually produces things.
Putting on the TV dinner.
Isn't it interesting how this particular narrative about women's labor coincides with the least amount of household labor in human history? You notice that? Like now we live in an era where men can be bachelors because they don't need housekeepers, because the amount of labor that to run a household a single person can manage now, even if they have a job. Like that wasn't the case, 100 years ago, right? So, but suddenly now is the time that women are being exploited by men, when household labor has never been less. Isn't that funny? Like maybe men should have just kept the household labor high. Like does not even talk about getting rid of women's rights. Just get rid of the dishwashers, the indoor
Get rid of
plumbing.
vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, get rid of the laundry machine. Right, get rid of the refrigerators, so she has to actually know how to can and jar and process food into something that will last over the winter. Just get rid of all of that. Get rid of it. And then she will go back to being like, oh no, household labor is just what I do. Okay, in exchange for whatever my husband does, fixing fences and plowing the fields, right? But apparently the big mistake that men made was taking the household from a 6-day-a-week, 12-hour-a-day job and making it a 5-day-a-week, 3-hour-a-day job. This is the biggest mistake you guys made. So what you really need to do is not take away women's rights, just take away their appliances, and then they'll shut up.
Yeah, right.
Put
them in survival mode, and they'll just do that. Okay. So men don't produce, women do, by virtue of having appliances that they have to use every so often. The second patriarchal structure within the economic level is that of patriarchal relations within paid work. A complex of forms of patriarchal closure within wage labor exclude women from the better forms of work and segregate them into the worst jobs, which are deemed less skilled. What? How do you define better or worse? What about, you mean okay, by this definition, if you are, I don't know, like working in lumber, that's a better job because it's dominated by men?
Or it's a better job if you go out and you have to wield the chainsaws and potentially get, mutilated and murdered by falling trees. That's obviously better than working in the air-conditioned office with all the women.
Yeah, right.
Because it just is okay.
Yeah, even if you were like to say, I don't know, like even if we got away from the typical sort of adult daycare jobs and you put women in something that's lower, lower, let's say, status, like retail, even then it's still like a lot safer or better than working in like construction or some just like day labor job, even like in agriculture, where you're like farming and shit. But of course, like when they talk about better jobs, I think they're falling into the apex fallacy where they just see like the fat CEO burning his money, and they don't see the men that, the men in particular, the men that are working on essentially like gathering the raw baseline materials that allow all of the other jobs to function, like mining, like energy, like things like that.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's, it's within wage work excluding. It's just better forms of segregating them to worse jobs. Okay, well, what's the worst job the woman gets segregated to? Oh, she has to answer the phone in the office while the guy has to go down into the sewers with a rod and break up the fat bugs and chisel used condoms and tampons off the wall of the... Yeah, her life is awful. It's just terrible. Sitting in that chair in that air-conditioned office answering the phone. Terrible. Awful.
Yeah.
Men shouldn't do that to women.
Sounds like a nightmare.
All
those female garbage collectors, in Barbie Land.
I watched What Women Want, and I found definitively that all of those women working in an office who had infinite amount of time to sit around gossiping, filing their nails, and eating avocado toast, all those wealthy, affluent, white, urban, liberal women or liberal females in what she they were the ones who were the most oppressed, because they constantly said how they weren't getting the jobs that men got because they were women. and yet their jobs, they weren't even doing them. What Women Want is the movie. It's absolutely forgettable and also horrible and a watershed moment in cinema, I think. Don't watch it. Just know that you watch what's his face? Clooney, I think. Have
What movie? You're talking about the movie What Women Want?
yes,
Oh, that was
he
that
had
was Mel Gibson. That was Mel
Mel
Gibson. I never
Gibson.
seen it. No, it was Mel Gibson.
Oh, okay. So it was Mel Gibson, and he basically plays an incoherent character that learns, gains the ability for no apparent reason to read women's minds, and yeah, it's really bad.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
In that it is so mediocre and boring.
He
But
owed somebody a favor to do that fucking movie. I bet.
Also ideological, probably. Maybe it was some manifestation of his own guilt over some of his behavior, perhaps. But anyway.
That was after that, but and I don't think he should apologize for anything. Yeah, that was after.
Maybe it spurred him to it. He's like, I got it.
I think the entire Hollywood culture spurred him to that, Alison. But anyway, okay, so let's get to the next one because we're running out of time here. So the state, so that was the second one, that was work. The state is patriarchal as well as being capitalist and racist. While being a site of struggle and not a monolithic entity, the state has a systemic bias towards patriarchal interests in its policies and actions. Okay, I mean, fine, I guess. If the system that we use in Western society was built by white men and it just so happens to work, then I guess that's the system I'm going to live under, and I'm okay with that. I don't think that just because white guys built it, it's racist. But of course, this is what they will claim. It's like the concept of trade and property rights is also something that they hate. So the fact that they don't want those things to exist is just okay, whatever.
Yeah, trade is racist, borders are racist, everything is racist because that's how men construct things at the behest of women. But, you know, because men did it, it has to be undone.
Yes, of course. Male violence constitutes a further structure, despite its apparently individualistic and diverse form. It is behavior routinely experienced by women from men with standard effect upon the actions of most women. Male violence against women is systematically condoned and legitimated by the state's refusal to intervene against its excerpt in exceptional instances, though the practices of rape, wife-beating, sexual harassment, etc. are too decentralized in their practice to be part of the state itself. So essentially, a whole lot of lies. We've already covered
just a lie, Violence Against Women Act, male aggressor presumed, all of these things. It's just a lie.
It's just lies about violence in general, which we have already debunked on this channel by looking at the actual statistics of, you know, women's violence, which is often not even measured as violence and not considered to be violence, which is really convenience, you know. Okay.
And the fact that you can be charged for things like, you know, sexual abuse and sexual harassment by just like talking to women or looking at them in your workplace, and that they'll just lodge complaints like that to get you fired if you're inconvenient to them and they don't like you. You know, you failed their vibe check when they, I don't know, had some meeting with you on Teams or whatever. They just didn't like you.
Yeah. Patriarchal relations and sexuality constitute a fifth structure. Compulsory heterosexuality and sexual double standards are two of the key forms of this structure. Compulsory heterosexuality. Hey, being gay is illegal. Did you know that? Oh.
Yeah, things like this have never, I mean, even insofar as like there have been times when homosexuality has been illegal, let's be honest, it was gay men that was upheld against. Like, no one gives
they were the ones targeted by anything.
Yeah, like nobody cares about gay women. I mean, we see this even when they talk about, oh, the hard patriarchies of the Middle East. Yeah, okay, lesbian women, they don't like them. Go and marry this man, he will make you right by the will of Allah. Oh, you're a gay man? Let's go to the top of that rooftop, buddy.
Yeah, let's go for a walk. Yeah. Okay. And I also want to point out that with regards to the sexuality stuff and also the rape stuff, we did a story on HBR News this week where there was a study that revealed, and again, this is a study that there could be some challenging of it because it was essentially, what do you call it, where you do interviews with people and you use that data to collect your data. So if somebody claims something, that's become part of the data. Well, they interviewed K through 12 students and found that 17% of them have been either had experienced sexual comments right up to grooming and sexual assault in schools. 17% of students were found to have experienced this. And this was by school faculty and staff, not students. So we're talking teachers. And who make up the majority of teachers in public schools? It's women. So there is and we covered on the news show countless stories of teachers grooming and having, and raping boys all the time. And of course, we don't call it that because it's a boy and but it's a grown ass woman. And somehow this isn't pedophilia. This is not something that calls for the wood chipper, at least not in the mainstream. And so I put a highlight on it to say this is happening. But because we don't use the appropriate words to describe it, then it doesn't appear to exist. And this is why language matters. So, okay, anyway. Patriarchal cultural institutions completes the array of structures. These are significant for the generation of a variety of gender-differentiated forms of subjectivity. This structure is composed of a set of institutions which create the representation of women within a patriarchal gaze in a variety of arenas such as religious, education, and media. So this is like a bunch of cultural institutions that are patriarchal. They're just going to say all of these things are patriarchal. And when they say education, really? I guess because there is facts in that, like mathematical equations and history. Media, this is a ridiculous claim. Like all this stuff is dominated by women now. Even religion, even Christianity is seeing like a massive increase in female pastors. I mean, I'd argue it's not Christian at all, but they have basically taken over and made it all feminist friendly and shit. So,
well, remember that feminist and religion book that we talked about?
Yep.
Was it last week? Literally, their main concern was how amenable religions are to feminist change.
Yep.
We can actually skip the last paragraph entirely. It's just the author saying
they're just saying this is what we're going to get into.
It doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
So we're basically done with that. So we can
that's
comment
it
and talk and stuff.
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't know if you guys want to say anything about that. Yes, the Church of England just appointed their first female archbishop. Yeah, that you guys are cooked. That church is done. Sorry.
Well, it doesn't connect. Like the thing is that it doesn't connect masculinity to a moral framework in an exclusive sense, which again, it starts to deconstruct like that what I've been talking about, which is masculine ethics and the necessity of them, which, if you have men representing them and only men can represent it, that emphasizes it. It's like we need to have some concession to our biology, and our society has decided that there will be none whatsoever. Never.
One singular.
Yeah. So I did you want to say anything further, Teal dear?
Not particularly. I just wanted to go through this and just say, like, yeah, this is literally what feminists are, what a feminist author is writing in a feminist textbook that is used to teach feminist courses, women's studies courses, gender studies courses, from basically degree to postdoc. You can find this book being used. This is what they officially think patriarchy is. This is the theory of patriarchy. Which, to give it its full name, is actually just the conspiracy theory that is the patriarchy assertion, but they like to call it a theory because they just like to sound important. It is fundamentally just men and the masculine frame, and any degree of male system thinking, as they call it, is wrong and needs to be destroyed. Unfortunately, the things that they call the male system theory, male system thinking, etc., just happens to be the stuff that literally creates society.
Yeah.
Because it is the thing that basically defines, okay, here is this thing exists, this thing is objective. Nope, we've got to get rid of that because you can't have things that are objective. Everything is relative. Nothing is actually absolute. Nothing is empirical. Okay, well, we still have this thing. It exists here. We need to have borders around this thing so that we can protect this thing. Well, you can't do that because you're excluding other people, and that means you're being racist and Islamophobic and homophobic and all of these other things, and capitalist and blah, 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 because you're separating your thing from that thing over there. It's just, it is entirely aimed at the destruction of a society. And the reason for that comes back to, yes, the spiritual underpinnings of this, which is the socialism thing. It's the left Hegelian thing, which is that Gnostic thing. The entire thing, everything from the ground up, this entire movement has only ever been about the revolution. It is about destroying what currently exists so that humans can move into the next phase, which in the socialist thing is the new socialist man, the society post the capitalist collapse, and in the left Hegelian Gnostic thing, which inspired all of that, it's everyone is dead and the spirit of the divine that's in them has returned to God. But they don't know that. These people who write these things, they don't know that that's the underlying principle of it. But once you know that it's there, you can see that this is what it's about. Every single thing that they ever talk about is only ever about being critical. It is only ever about deconstruction. They never define anything as, and this is what we're going to build to replace it.
No, they just act on the assumption that something, some of them, they basically just say, well, something will rise from the ashes like the phoenix. We just don't know what it's going to look like.
It's the new socialist man. He will just happen. And
yes,
everyone will do everything for everyone whenever they want because they're totally free from everything somehow. People will just volunteer to go into the lithium mines and volunteer to go and farm sulfur because their comrades need matches. But they won't, but that's what they think is going to happen.
And what we actually ended up with is a financialization nightmare that's abstracting off of the actual creation of stuff. Right? So they're abstracting and destroying the actual creation, the actual productive layer of society, the actual productive and protective layers of society. Yeah.
Those are male, they are masculine, they must go.
Yep. And they're illegitimate because reasons. And we can't actually arrange things so that they have what they need to function because that would be patriarchy. Good Lord. Oh, so we've constructed a perfect system to destroy itself. All right, that's a positive thing to conclude on.
Yeah, I hope everyone feels suitably educated. We have educated ourselves. We have read a book. So
part of the book. We could continue.
And you haven't changed your mind? Read another book.
Yeah, well, we could continue on this path if you wish, Teal dear. Next Friday.
I don't know. There's all the different sections of the book. I guess if you wanted to do any of them, you could. You could name some or just pick them. I don't know. It's up to you.
I have that feminist TED talk that I sent you, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, we can do anything, whenever, wherever. I just wanted to bring this to people's attention because I thought it was funny. What I do hereafter, I have no idea.
It is absolutely central to everything we're dealing with. I hope people notice that.
Well, they won't because as people keep saying, it's, oh, we're not talking about feminism anymore. We're talking about race now. We're talking about Islam now. We're talking about these things. Yeah, the reason that this stuff is a problem is because this shit existed. I've been telling you this for years. Like, if you snapped your fingers tomorrow and all the people that are too dark for you to want them in society or too Muslim or too Jewish or whatever for your particular taste, your particular brand of whatever, if you snapped your finger and all of those people vanished, everything is still fucked. Yeah. Because you don't actually have a functioning relationship between men and women in society. That relationship is still under attack. It's still falling apart, even if all of those other things go away, because all of those other things being there are just a symptom of that underlying collapse.
Yep.
Like treating the symptoms of the collapse may help, like ameliorate something somewhere, but if you don't address that collapse, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it's just going to come back anyways.
If you
like
get
it's
rid of
just
all
going
of
to
the,
reemerge over time. So
if you
all
get
right.
rid of all of the diversity all of the diversity initiatives that are excusing the financialization that's destroying the commodities and the productivity that we rely on, you're still going to have the destruction. You might not have the shield that's excusing it, because literally they said, okay, free market is why there's problems in economic problems. That's what they said. Free market is masculine. It's why we have economic problems. Let's replace everybody with a rainbow, and then we won't have those problems. But if you got rid of the rainbow, you'd still have the excuse for the destruction of the free market, right? It would still be there. It's still operating, and it would just be women now. We just need to get rid of men for women, but it's still the same destruction. And I know I'm taking this to like the economic, but that's where I've been for a while. So yeah, okay. So if you guys enjoyed this show, please send us a message at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very best way for you to send us whatever funds you want to send us, and best way for you to send us a message with those funds. Been quiet this episode, but maybe afterwards you guys will have some
We had
thoughts.
a decent number of people watching.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah.
I guess that's our niche more, is just directly going into the feminist bullshit and analyzing the fundamentals. But yeah, okay, so feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you want to send a tip. BadgerNation.online if you want to join our community, and feedthebadger.com/support. I don't have it up yet, but it will be eventually if you want to support the show. So I'll hand this back to you, Brian. And
all right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you to Teal Deer for supplying us with this content that like allows us to bring this to you. And thank you guys, of course, most of all, for showing up, for watching this video, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.